Hello, welcome to the Upper Deck for Pinstripe Chronicles. I'm Chris, I'm here with Lynn, and our guest today is Deb Seymour, a baseball writer and editor for both her own blog, BigAppleBite.com, and Ball9. Check out both. I don't know if you have or have not done that, but you probably have. Lynn and I were probably late to the game. So make sure you check that out. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment during the podcast today. And we're going to get rolling talking about what's going on in Yankeedom. This has been, it's a fun time to do a podcast. My God, the Yankees are now 49-16. They have a 9-game win streak. They're 33 games over 500. They've won 16 out of their last 17 games, and we're only 65 games into the 2022 season. And I just read a tweet just earlier before I came on. They've lost one game in June, June 19th. So, this team is fun, and it naturally brings back memories of the 98 team. Deb, I know that this is a topic you've been interested in, that you've written on, and I know that Lynn and I both love the idea of comparing the two.
Thank you so much. It's really my pleasure to be a guest on this podcast, and I'm sure I'll completely enjoy being here. So yes, I did write a piece both for my own blog and one for Ball9 on the comparison between the 1998 Yankees and the current team. Now, when I wrote the piece for my own blog, we were only in the early 30s in terms of number of games into the season. And of course, I have caveats throughout the article saying 30 games into the season, what do you know, right? It's very hard to project what the rest of the season will look like. And then when I wrote the piece for Ball9, we were about 39 games into the season, so a little further along in terms of trying to be able to project out what this team would continue to look like, and if there any comparisons to the 1998 team could be made, should be made, or valuable to make. And I think the thing that has struck most Yankee fans, and especially those who may not have watched the 1998 team regularly, is how dominant this team seems to be. They find a way to win every single game. They've won the majority of their games. They're obviously 33 games over 500 right now, and they've lost a few, but the few that they've lost don't seem to have stood in their way and have gotten their spirits down, and we haven't seen long losing streaks. So they seem able to bounce back. So just in terms of spirit and the spirit of competition and the motivation they bring every day, they remind me a lot of that 1998 team who, had 114 wins over the course of the regular season. 114 wins, which is mind-boggling.
It is.
And then in addition to that, they seem to bounce back really easily after a loss. So that's one of the things that we remember about the spirit of that team and how excellent they seem to be. But I also did look up a number of statistics about both teams. And here are some of the ones I find the most interesting about the 1998 team. And this is, by the way, over the course of the entire 162 games. So we would have to project out to 162 for the current team if we wanted to say there's a really explicit comparison. Right. And right now we're at 65 games for the current team. So it would be a really sort of lengthy projection that we'd have to make. But to the degree that there are any comparisons that are worth even starting to look at, team batting, the OPS for the entire 162 games for the 1998 team, the OPS for the entire team was .825, which was ranked number 1 in the American League that year. The slugging percentage was .460, which was ranked number 4 in the American League that year, not number 1. Okay. So they were a power hitting team, but not that much of a power hitting team. Right. The player on the 1998 team with the most home runs was Tino Martinez. And can you guess how many home runs that was? Just for fun, if you haven't looked up the stat.
No, I haven't, and it surprises me that it was Tino.
It was Tino, and I think the number is not one that people would guess.
Right. I mean, and they won a World Series. Okay, I'm going to guess 30. And I think I'm guessing high.
You are. It was 28.
Oh! I didn't get to say my guess, and no one's going to
Tino Martinez had the highest number of home runs over 162 games, and at the time it was 28, and that was considered to be a power hitting number. Now, we know Tino hit for average as well, which is part of what made him one of the unique players at the time and a very popular player. However, as the biggest power hitter, quote, on the Yankees at the time, 28 home runs. Now, Judge already has 25. And we're 60, we're 65 games into the season. So, if we would project out, and of course this all depends on Judge staying healthy and not going through a slump and so forth. But if you project forward, obviously we expect Judge to have over 50 home runs this year as the home run hitter on the team with the greatest number of, which we assume will be the greatest number of home runs. So context matters. In 1998, being a power hitter, you could hit 28 home runs and be considered a power hitter.
Yep.
Strikeouts. The 1998 team in total had 1,025 strikeouts. That was ranked number 5 in the American League at the time. It was not ranked number 1. There were 4 teams ahead of them in the American League with fewer strikeouts than they had.
Okay.
They had 207 home runs, ranked number 4 in the American League.
Mm-hmm.
The highest OPS on the team was Bernie Williams, and his OPS was .997. Judge's OPS at this point is well over 1,000.
Right.
So even in the OPS category, if Judge projects out, continues the season the way he projects out, his OPS will be higher than the highest OPS on the 1998 team was. In terms of the rotation in 1998 was Andy Pettitte, David Cone, David Wells, Hideki Irabu, and Orlando El Duque Hernandez. And this is another fun stat. Their ERAs ranged from 3.13 to 4.24 over the course of that entire season. And guessing who had the lowest ERA, I don't think most people would make the accurate guess. The lowest ERA on that team was held by El Duque at 3.13. The highest ERA on that team was held by Andy Pettitte at 4.24.
Wow.
Back in the day, having an ERA anywhere below 4.00 was considered outstanding. And if you were in the low 4s, that was pretty good too.
Right.
These days, ERAs of the best rotations tend to be under 3. So times have changed. Everything is context specific.
Right.
And we'll get to some of the stats for the current 2022 team in a few minutes. And those will demonstrate that the top starting ERAs these days are expected to be much lower than they were 24 years ago.
Right.
The bullpen, of course, obviously there were many, many participants over the course of the year. People were sent up, people were sent down. The primary bullpen players were Mariano Rivera, Ramiro Mendoza, Mike Stanton, Jeff Nelson, and Graham Lloyd. Of those 5, and nobody ever guessed this right. I'm sorry?
Legends.
Yeah. But of those 5 primary people used out of the bullpen, and the reason I say primary is that they had the most appearances. Who had the lowest ERA? Nobody gets this right.
Lloyd?
Yes. At 1.67.
Wow. Good for you, Lynn.
I liked Lloyd.
Yeah, I mean, he was a lefty specialist, and therefore he didn't have as many appearances, but he still had many more appearances than some of the others who participated in the bullpen that year, and that's why he was in the top 5 in appearances.
Right.
Of players out of the bullpen that year. Anybody guess what Mariano Rivera's ERA was for the year? It was 1.91. It was not 0.29.
Wow.
Ray Holmes' ERA is currently 0.29.
Right. I know, and this is maybe a good place to say that I can see where people would not like the comparisons between the 98 team and the current team because of a guy like Mariano, who's a Hall of Famer, who's,
Exactly.
set the records. But I mean, Clay Holmes, he surpassed Rivera in not just that category.
To date, obviously. I mean, it's not over the
right.
course of the entire season. But to date, yes. To date, he has surpassed Rivera's achievement in 1998.
Yes.
Yes.
He has. I mean, he has 31.1 consecutive scoreless innings pitched. Holmes does. And that Mariano had 30.2 that was in 99 though. So
that was his longest stretch.
Holmes he's closing in on these records that Mariano I didn't think people believed would be broken.
And to add to that, and the case for, I'm not making a case, never mind, because Mariano, I'll always do this too. But the streak that Holmes is currently on is the longest streak in Yankees history.
That's correct.
Right.
And so even if he does not maintain for the rest of the season, he's already broken some records, Yankee records, over the course of the lengthy Yankee history. And that in itself is noteworthy. So it bears calling out. And we all know that Clay Holmes is very, very popular with the fan base, in addition to being an excellent pitcher. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens when Chapman comes back.
It's going to be. And God forbid Boone put him in as the closer. The Yankees Twitter will be on fire. Because, Holmes is definitely, as you say, not only the fan favorite, but he's the man. He
is.
Max Goodman quoted Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who said this about Clay Holmes yesterday: once we see him jog out, we know the game is over. And that's how people felt about Mariano.
That's right.
And, we do know that Mariano blew very few saves over the course of his career. He one of the reasons that his ERA got driven up at times is that he was used in a lot of tie game situations over the course of his career. And we all know that a lot of closers have trouble with tie games. That is not where they thrive. But Mariano found himself in a tie game very, very often as the pitcher of record. And I think that did drive up his ERA to some extent. He just did not thrive in a tie game situation. Just to finish up with some team stats about the 1998 team errors total over the course of the year was 98. That ranked third in the American League. Their fielding percentage was .984, which also ranked third in the American League. So, in order to be a really good team and win World Series, you do need defense. And the fact that the Yankees did shore up their defense this year has definitely helped them win games. And we've seen it in the field. It's a very, very different looking team than over the past few years, where we saw many errors and a lot of errors because players were playing out of their natural position, and, a lot of sort of square pegs forced into round holes kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But we're not seeing that this year, and it seems to be making a difference. 65 games into this 2022 season, the team OPS is ranked number 1 in the American League, the current Yankee team at 767. It is a lower team OPS than that of the 1998 team, but it's still ranked number 1 in the American League.
Right.
Team slugging is 460, which is comparable to what the slugging was in 1998, ranked number 1 in the American League. Number of home runs to date is 105, ranked number 1 in the American League. Team starting pitching ERAs are 194 to 333. That is better than any of the starting rotation back in 1998 in terms of raw numbers.
Right.
The key bullpen players for the current team have been Holmes and Peralta and Castro and Lukey and King. Their ERAs, we've already mentioned that of Holmes, and his ERA is .29. The highest ERA out of the bullpen among those five guys who have made the most appearances is 3.86, still below 4.
Right.
And that is the worst ERA among those five who've made the most appearances to date. Team average in terms of ERA is 2.79, ranked number 1 in the American League. Pitching overall so far for the Yankees is ranked number 1 so far in almost every category, in almost every stat
Right.
in the American League. And just to wrap up with fielding, this team, the current 2022 team, has 26 errors to date, which is ranked number 2 in the American League. Over the course of 162 games, if you recall, the 1998 team were ranked number 3 in the American League in terms of errors. So this team is ahead in that category so far. In terms of fielding percentage, their raw number is .989. That's their fielding percentage number, ranked number 1 in the American League. So, what we can say is you can't compare two teams who played 24 years apart because context and what baseball was like back then, context matters and the rules were different. And in general, what teams were doing across both leagues, the American League and the National League, was different back in those days. However, within the context of this current 2022 season, this team is as good, if not better, than the 1998 team was within the context of the season in which they were playing.
Yeah, that's clear.
Yeah. And I think, when I distill what you're saying to me about the 1998 team, it takes good defense, the, highly ranked offense. I can't remember if you said they were number 1. It takes pitching. It takes balance. And
Exactly.
That's what this team has this year more of than they have since Boone's been the manager. That to me is favorably compares with the 98 team. There's
Agreed.
A balance.
Agreed. The fact that defense is now being taken seriously again. Yeah. We're not just looking at hitting for power the way we had been for the past few years, but looking at, playing a little small ball. Having players on the team who can run a little faster. Everybody's stealing bases.
Yes.
Even the guys on the team you wouldn't expect. So every single time somebody reaches first base, the opposing team has to be worried they might run. Doesn't matter who it is. Yeah. Anthony Rizzo is running the bases. Aaron Judge is running the bases. Gallo is running the bases. Always got to be looking out for a steal. It's not just going to be Isaiah kind of Falafel, who's known to be one of the faster guys on the team. I think even Gleyber Torres may have a couple of stolen bases this year, and we know he's not the fastest runner on the team.
No, absolutely. And just overall with Gleyber for a quick second, he's much more assertive / aggressive than we've seen him in the past. And I think in part that's due to the uptick we've had in the quality of coaching this year. But also I think he's sort of, feeling his niche and just better about himself. I mean, he was ready for that tagging at third to get to the plate. I don't remember which game it was. I was thinking it might be game 1 we had with Toronto. Yeah, he's looking like smart on the bags too. And so
he's looking more like the Gleyber that first came up.
That's right.
When he was brought up from AAA to the Yankees. And, we all had very high expectations for him. And he really performed the first year or two, and then something dropped off. But this year, he seems recharged. His batteries seem recharged. He seems re-energized, and he's performing at the plate. He's had some clutch hits, and he's, managing the bases better, and he's certainly been better defensively. So I think Chris, you may have even looked up some stats or...
I did, because I was telling, prior to our going on the air here, I was telling them that I had made the mistake of thinking that Gleyber was not improved defensively as much as he is. And so someone had said that what a great job Gleyber was doing this year, offensively and defensively. And I agreed, offensively, he's been improved, especially in recent weeks. But I said, let's not pretend he's a good second baseman. Well, I was wrong. I had to go look up the numbers. And I mean, he's got a 7 DRS, which I think most Yankee fans would have thought was impossible, that would be an impossible height for him to reach. Yeah. But indeed.
Yep.
Yes, and he's had fewer errors, but it's also he's had more what we would consider difficult chances at second base, and he's made the plays. So a lot of things go into your defensive statistics, especially once we get into advanced analytics. It's not just the avoidance of making errors, but it's also how difficult were the chances and how well you stood up to them and how well a replacement player who was, an average second baseman would have played those difficult chances. And Gleyber has done really well in terms of all of those kinds of numbers this year.
Yeah. And unrelated to stats, I found it so remarkable yesterday, and what ended up being a double for him. When how much time did we spend trying to determine if I forget the player out in center field? There, he was up in the air entirely too long, and the question was whether he had actually caught it and held onto it, as opposed to up against the wall, getting it back in his glove. Do you recall that play yesterday? And like, as soon as it happened, Gleyber signaled to the dugout, and went like this.
Yeah.
Like, you better look at that because I know he didn't have the ball. Right. As he was running, running and landing on second. And so I also took that as a little, Gleyber, advocating, telling the manager what to do. And he was right. It took a challenge and it took Chelsea, but it was right.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little cute Gleyber moment.
Well, yeah. I think we're seeing really great team chemistry with this team too.
Oh.
It's, and I also think that in terms of winning seasons and winning world championships, the chemistry on the team is a big factor. So, you can have a team that is composed of all individuals with very excellent statistics, but if they don't play well together, you're probably not going to win anything significant. Exactly. But with this team, they really seem to play well together, and that clubhouse, I imagine, seems to work really well, whether either with Boone or despite him.
And that's not something. Oh, sorry, Chris.
Oh no, go ahead.
That's not something you're going to get from a scouting report.
Right.
That's something that you just land in, and it really is pure luck. Chemistry in all things, right? Somebody could look really good on paper when on the first date, and then it doesn't play out that way. So that's a direct line between 98 and this year.
I agree.
And chemistry, amidst all of the other details and the stats and the performances, you got to have that.
Yeah.
And this is just a magical level of it, I think, that we're seeing in unpredictable ways too.
Yes.
When you look at, and I know we're going to be leading into that now, right? Looking at where that's coming from and driving it and having it spread across the squad.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about Rizzo, and I want to say you were saying that the chemistry is partly luck. Well, it might be partly Brian Cashman's wizardry as well, because Rizzo is a perfect fit for a big city team. He obviously conquered Chicago with the force of his personality, his charitable acts, and most of all his play, and his leadership in the Cub clubhouse, I'm sure, could not be understated. so, or overstated. So Rizzo was an important addition, I think, to making the chemistry what it is.
Certainly seems that way. I think last year when when the Yankees picked up Rizzo, we thought, oh, great, another left-handed bat in the lineup, which the lineup needed.
Yeah.
His swing is perfect for, or quite close to perfect for Yankee Stadium. And you know, he was sort of a local kid when he grew up. He was a Yankee fan. He was from New Jersey. And even though he loved playing for the Cubs and won a World Series with them, and he's made it clear that he really enjoyed his time there, and it was difficult for him to leave that team. Nevertheless, there were certain, you know, attractions to having Rizzo in particular on the Yankees. And he really does seem to have helped cemented the team. I think a lot of people have talked about how he seems to have this chemistry with Aaron Judge, and they're complementary leaders for the team.
Yeah.
That, you know, Judge sort of leads in one way. He has a really good outward-facing role to represent the team, and in the clubhouse, he's probably an extremely important leader as well. But Rizzo, in a different way, from what I read this week, Rizzo really does call out his teammates if he thinks they made a mistake or did something in the wrong way. He holds them accountable, and accountability is part of what makes a team win.
Right.
I read that as well, and that article also talked about he's also the one that will go to the mound and steady a pitcher down, and I've definitely seen that. I think we all have, and so he has the gut instinct of knowing when it's right to do that, you know, when to approach that pitcher and what to say.
That's interesting. I did not see that, but I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a favorite of mine when he was on the Cubs.
So he was a favorite of mine when he was on the Cubs too.
I mean,
always wanted him on the Yankees.
Yeah, and everyone knows I'm a secret Cub fan because I grew up in the Midwest. So, I mean, Rizzo was a dream come true coming over. Now, what I think is interesting is the way fans right now are clamoring, some fans, for the Yankees to acquire Wilson Contreras.
Yes.
From the Cubs. And that's something that I'm not sure I understand why Contreras is so attractive. I mean, well, in a way I do, because he has similar leadership, etc. But I mean, he's no better defensively, I don't think, than what we've got at any rate.
Can we just stop? I mean, can we seriously just stop? Get out of the lockout zone. When, you know, we were all fantasizing about who to bring over to make the team better. Get out of the post-lockout zone when we're disgruntled because we didn't get them. We have, you know, the Rorvet was the big get. Where is he? And who stepped up? Who's going to complain to me? Go ahead and at me on Twitter. Open invitation. Who's gonna complain about Trevino?
Yeah.
And what he has brought, and tell me guaranteed that this would look better than Contreras right now, you know, and everybody, and I say this every episode, everyone's going to peak and valley. So I'm not going to say that, you know, this is going to be 100% all the way, but we currently have a catcher who offensively and defensively is, you know, to me, equally contributing to the game.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed. And seems to be a great clubhouse personality and, you know, contributing to the chemistry of the team. And sometimes when the chemistry of the team is working, it doesn't pay to mess with it, even if you can get somebody who's offensively going to hit, you know, 40 points higher for you. You know, if the team, I would say if the team was having a trouble with win-loss record or a lot of trouble scoring runs, and it was imperative that they bring in an offensive catcher again, because effectively right now they have two defensive catchers, and Higgy, you know, he's gotten a little hot lately, but he's really more of a defensive catcher. And Trevino has been really, really clutch, but he's still not in the category of, you know, whom we would consider the primary offensive catchers in the league.
Right.
And if the team was having trouble with hitting and scoring runs, you might want to look for somebody who's more of an offensive catcher, the way Gary Sanchez was supposed to be for this team, even though that didn't work out for a lot of reasons. But the team doesn't seem to be hurting for it.
No. I saw a tweet just exactly along the lines of what you're saying right now this morning, where someone was saying that In other words, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
With Hicks and Gallo, despite the fact that they've been lumps in the lineup, and people have been complaining incessantly that we need to that we need to go out and get an outfielder. It's still, if we're winning at the clip that we are now, it's working.
Exactly. I mean, that is one of my pet peeves at the moment, is all the Hicks and Gallo complaining in the fan base. I do think that Hicks has not lived up to the contract that was expected. I think we can say that without pulling any punches, that signing him to 7 years without having enough of a track record with him to decide that he was worth those 7 years was probably not the wisest move on the Yankee organization's part. The injuries have obviously not contributed in a positive way to his success with the team, and that they couldn't predict, and that he couldn't predict either. He's probably only starting to find his footing again now after not playing consistently for such a long time. However, even though he hasn't lived up to what we would have hoped his contract would lead us to believe he'd be, the constant complaining about him and saying that the Yankees need to make a move because he's sort of not the perfect player for this team, you're never going to have a lineup that doesn't have holes. There is no such thing. Every lineup has holes. There is no lineup that has 9 perfect hitters that you truck out every single day, who never get hurt, who never have to go on the IR or on the IL, DL, IL, IR. Depends on the sport, depends on the year. You never have to go on the IL. There is no such team. There is no such lineup. And, Hicks's injuries and the fact that he hasn't bounced back the way people would hope, I don't think he's the best player on the team, and if a great trade could be found for him, that would be fantastic. But given the number of years left on his contract, it's doubtful. I don't think he's trade bait. I don't think another team is going to go for him. And if you can't get much value for him, then you just have to try to coach and wait to see that he turns out to be as good a player as he can be, given his history. And with Gallo, he seems to be finding himself a little bit more. Again, and maybe just a matter of a little bit more patience. It's a long season.
Yeah.
We still have almost 100 games left to play. That's a lot of games to say that these two are expendable and that we need to get rid of those 2 holes in the lineup. I'm not sure there is a way of getting rid of those 2 holes in the lineup, because another hole will pop up somewhere else. Right. Somebody will get hurt, whatever it is. There is no perfect lineup with 9 perfect hitters. Just doesn't exist.
And the other part, I think, is that some management of expectations has to happen, particularly when it comes to Gallo. Gallo's always been clear that he is always going to strike for the fences. That's what he brings. That's what he knows that he brings. But with that becomes those gaps in time where we're not going to, be fed a raisin every time on the plate as fans, and feel like, okay, positive reinforcement for us, and so contribution isn't just about that instant reinforcement. It's about the long haul, and if he's doing okay in the field, which he has, there really hasn't been anything much to criticize about that, and he has been clutch.
I don't know about that, but...
Okay, so we could get to that. and we have actually gone, yes, I know that but I'm also, I guess, relatively speaking to some of the others that one of whom we've just been talking about, but my thing is that he does get those hits, those power hits and they're always needed. And however, to his credit, he is, doing a little bit of small ball. This current series is one of the examples. And I think you also pointed out, Deb, that, he's also running faster around the bases too. So
he's stolen a couple, which really surprised me.
Right. And so that's sort of also experiential, right? And so, you know, he gets practice at that, and you know, maybe we'll see more of it. Just like we're seeing that in Stanton. You know, the more time he has out in the field, you know, it's rounding him out as a player.
That's right.
But go ahead, Chris.
Well, first of all, excuse me, I heard Susan Waldman yesterday. I had to watch the game or listen to the game on radio because I was traveling. I didn't get to see it, but Susan made the comment that she felt sorry for Gallo because in Texas, he was the man. You know, he was the big man that everyone paid their money to see.
Yeah.
And now on the Yankees, he's just one of the power hitters that, you know, he fits in on the team. But I thought that was kind of a lame statement because I don't feel sorry for him when he doesn't hit. You know, it's like he's getting paid an awful lot of money to perform, and even defensively, it seems like and I'm probably wrong because, and someone will probably point it out, and I'll have to eat crow again today.
I'm probably going to have to eat crow. Go ahead.
Right. But it seems like, and maybe that Gallo doesn't want to play left field anymore. Is that not a thing?
No, that was something that actually was going to address. They've moved him to right because that's his natural position.
So right's his
he won a Gold Glove last year as right fielder, and that's because with Texas he played right field, and he actually was a Gold Glove right fielder for Texas. Okay. So even though he finished out his season with the Yankees and Judge was playing right field and not center at the time, nevertheless, because of his play in Texas, he did win the American League Gold Glove for right field. So I think the Yankees are figuring that if he gets moved back to his natural position in the field, A, the fielding itself will be better, but B, it may improve his hitting because he just overall may feel more comfortable. And since Judge has proven you don't lose much by having him in center field defensively, in other words, it's not like Hicks is a much better fielder defensively than Aaron Judge is in center field. If Judge is able to play center field and is willing to play center field, then having Gallo in right actually is much more natural positioning. So it does make sense. Yeah. And I don't think he was moved to right because he doesn't want to play left. He's in a position to do whatever the team tells him to do. I really think they moved him to right because that is his natural position.
So I guess I'm showing my anti-Gallo bias. I never saw the purpose for Gallo when they brought him over in the first place. So I always have trouble. I mean, I root for him. It's not that I don't root for Gallo. I want him to succeed. But he's not my favorite Yankee. I'm sorry.
I don't think he's anybody's favorite Yankee at this point, but they wanted to bring more left-handed hitting into the lineup, and Rizzo was the primary move in that respect, but Gallo was going to be the left-handed power move. So Rizzo, even though his average this year is in the 220s, he's actually hit for average a little bit better than that over the course of his career, and he's not known as a power hitter, even though he does hit some really clutch home runs. So his swing was known to be a good swing for Yankee Stadium because they thought his number of home runs would go up based on the short porch. And statistically, it probably has. I haven't looked on that and looked at that percentage-wise over the number of games he's played at Yankee Stadium versus in Wrigley. However, they figured he had a good swing for Yankee Stadium. He was available, and they needed more lefties in the lineup. Gallo, the thinking was very, very similar. They brought over Gallo because he was a power hitter, and they thought he'd really benefit from the short porch. And Yankee Stadium is a lefty hitter stadium. Right. Now, we've been fortunate with hitters like Aaron Judge, who've managed to be successful there. Alex Rodriguez back in the day, who was a righty as well. Hitters who've managed to be really successful in Yankee Stadium, despite the fact that they are right-handed hitters. But the thinking with Gallo was get a power lefty in there and see what that'll do. Yeah. Now it hasn't been perfect because he hasn't hit the way he did in Texas, and that's all we would have been able to hope for. Right. And especially with the short porch, we would have thought that would have enhanced it, in fact. However, that was the thinking. And I don't think it was bad thinking. Yeah. Well, and Gallo is
making improvements, and so this is a bad time to not be a Gallo fan, I think, because he is improving. And I think the play in right field probably will contribute to that. If the thinking is that when Stanton plays the field, he's better at the plate, then I'm sure that's the same. That's the thinking that will, be the same for Gallo. And
the numbers bear it out with Stanton, actually. The more he plays the field, the better he is at the plate.
Right. Which, I mean, excuse me, but play the field. That's what I never understood about Stanton being bubble wrapped anyway. That's another question that I always had, but that maybe is for another day. I don't know.
No, I really think the Yankees were trying to protect him from injury. Look, he does have leg injuries every year. And he already had one this year. Fortunately, it managed to clear up quickly enough to get him back on the field within 10 days. But he is leg injury prone, and so that's what the thinking is behind DHing him. But you just can't ignore the numbers, and the numbers are telling us that he performs so much better at the plate when he does get to play the field fairly regularly, that it's very hard to ignore that, and the Yankees are putting that in play.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I want to just bring up IKF for a quick second.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
As part of our fan buzz that we like to do every week, and sort of in the theme of, bring Contreras over and trade Trevino. So a tweet from the Gooch caught my eye this week, at Kyle.com, CALM, which I love. IKF isn't getting traded. We added him, Donaldson, and Trevino, and went from a mediocre team to the best team in baseball by a wide margin. IKF is an upgraded shortstop offensively and defensively from last year. Pros outweigh the cons by a lot. What do you guys think about that?
Agree 100%. Gleyber was never comfortable at shortstop. I think we could see that even just in his body language. So it wasn't simply that he committed as many errors as he did and that he just didn't seem to make the difficult plays. Or he would make the occasional difficult play, but then the standard play just somehow would get by him. Right. So it was clear that he was not comfortable there. And then even just his body language for all the time they tried him at shortstop, it just wasn't working. He is much more comfortable at second base. And as we talked about at the top of the show, even the numbers bear out the fact that Gleyber is better at second base than he was at short. So IKF is definitely an upgrade in that respect. But I also think his hitting has been clutch.
Yes.
He's never going to hit 300 for you, but that's okay as long as he hits when you need him to. And he's done an awful lot of that. So in that sense, he's an upgrade over the way Gleyber was the previous couple of years. Now, Gleyber has been more clutch this year than he was last year and the year before. He's much closer to the player, as we had mentioned, that that the Yankees originally had brought up when he was brought up from AAA. However, compared to the way he was at shortstop the past couple of years and what his hitting looked like, IKF has been an upgrade even over the hitting part of Gleyber at shortstop.
That's right.
Yeah. And
then you tack on the speed factor.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, in a run to first, his speed was just over 4 seconds to get to first from home plate.
Wow.
Which is pretty incredible.
Yeah. So he has that in his arsenal as well. And
he's a base stealer, which, the previous couple of years, or longer than the previous couple of years, the Yankees did not have base stealers on the team.
No.
And he has, ignited the team in that regard. So as we were saying, the entire team has turned into base stealers. I mean, league beware, because every single Yankee this year will run.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, you need an igniter for that.
Yeah.
And I think IKF has been a big igniter in terms of the base stealing.
Yeah, I agree.
I would never have expected Judge to be among them.
No.
I wouldn't have expected Gallo to be among. I wouldn't have expected Gleyber to be among them. There are, a number of Yankees who are not first-year Yankees whom, seeing them run the bases the way they have been and stealing bases, I wouldn't have expected Rizzo to be a base stealer, and he's been doing it. He's not even, a sort of a more entrenched Yankee. So, we have this team running and they're playing small ball. It's a very different looking team, and they're being successful at it.
Yeah.
and still lead the league in home runs on top of all of that.
Right. It goes back to what I said about balance.
Yes.
It's a balanced offense, more balanced offense than we've had for years. And it's so much fun right now to root for this team and to be a part of the Yankee experience. Every game, you expect them to win.
Yes.
At least I know I do. If they're down by 4, I don't see any reason why they can't come back and win by 10 these days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that part does remind me of the 1998 team.
Right.
We never expected that team to lose.
Yep.
So, if I remember there were games in 1998 where I got to watch the first couple of innings and then I had to go somewhere and do something and leave the house. And this one specific game, I remember the team was being blown out by Texas, I believe, at the time. And they were down, it was 15 runs to 4 or something like that. And I had to go somewhere, and I was on the subway in New York, and this was several hours later on my way back home where I was going to check it. We didn't have cell phones back then to check the score wherever you were. So, you had to wait till you were in a place where you could get access. Well, I'm on the subway on my way home from wherever it was that I had to go, and there was somebody next to me talking about the Yankees. So I turned to them and I said, by the way, do you know what happened with today's game? Because I had to leave after the second inning. And this person said to me, to a total stranger on the subway, this person said to me, oh, no, they're winning. It's okay. They're in the ninth. They're about to close this game out. They're going to win this game. They had been down by some incredible number of runs, and they came back. And, with this year's team, we kind of expect to see the same thing.
So, Deb, you're touching right to my heart, and my biological sisters, who are, when they watch this, will know. There was one game my father took us to, and we drove. We lived close by, and so it was the same situation. And my father was not a patient guy. Happy Father's Day in heaven, Dad, but you were not. It was the end of the bottom of the 7th. The Yankees were behind by at least that much, Deb. And I believe that they were playing the A's. This would have been around the late 70s. And he said, come on, the game's over. He wanted to beat the traffic on the Deegan. We could catch the rest of the game on the radio.
Right.
And so he dragged his 3 daughters out of the stadium, and he was outnumbered anyway because he was the only man in the family. When we got a dog, it had to be a male dog just to help him feel a little better. And so there we are on the Deegan in traffic that wasn't moving, the traffic he wanted to beat. And with the radio on, what happened. And that we had him over a barrel for every game ever after that.
That's right. Never left a game early again.
Until Frank Sinatra was playing on the
Right.
speaker. And in fact, we called it the Colbert Rule, and which was my maiden name. So same exact thing. Like, you just don't know. And that's part of the magic of the game, right?
Right.
You just don't know. So
yeah, I think some years, you don't expect the team to come. There were a few dark years after that 2009 World Series of victory that, in the declining years, I would say, of Teixeira and Alex Rodriguez and several other players, during which the Yankees lost a lot of games, one-run games. There were mostly a lot of very close games played because the pitching staff was still doing its job, but the hitting just wasn't what it had been. And, they lost a lot of one-run games those years. The issue with that is you kind of did know that by the time they got down by 3-4 runs, that team was not going to come back. And this is a very different team.
Sure.
It's not, the 2010, 2011, 2012 team.
Right. It's not even the 2021 team. I did not believe that team would come back. Last year. I mean,
agreed.
Especially when they were in one of their offensive streaks, when they were not hitting, which seemed to go on for like a 2-week period, and then They would hit again, and then they wouldn't. Yeah, it was crazy. So
Good time to be a Yankee fan.
it's a
Right
great
now, yes.
Yankee fan.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us this week. We had a blast having Deb on with us. Please go to bigapplebite.com. Go to Ball9. Is it ball9.com?
It is ball9.com,
ball9.com.
and my column is Up and In. That's the name of my column.
Definitely go there. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. We'd love to hear what you think this week. I'd love to hear whether you think there are any future Hall of Famers on this team.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think about that.
Yeah.
Lynn, any final thoughts?
Yes. And so I do need to do a shout out, and would like to add the trivia of the week question.
All right.
So, yep. So I want to shout out Muzzy X and NDMD. That you guys know him as Spencer if you follow him, and MD Nelly, Mike Nelson, who were the two correct guesses from last week's trivia question, which was 2 players in MLB have multiple walk-off hits this season. Who are they? And it was Jose Trevino and Gleyber Torres. So now, this is the question of the week. And so along with your likes and comments, and by the way, also follow Deb on bigapplebite.com and all the things we ask you to do every week. You know, I'm a teacher. I love to give out homework, but here's your pop quiz for the week. Yankees are 3rd in AL history with at least 48 wins and a plus 140 run differential or better in their first 64 games. Who were the other 2?
Great question.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Twister.
be like Nelly and Spencer, and do the Scouts honor thing, and don't Google, don't phone a friend. There are no lifelines. You know, be honorable Yankee fans, and would love for you to comment when this tweet drops and give us your best guesses. I also just want to make note, this is a long goodbye, and but just want to note that Friday was our 200th episode from Pinstripe Chronicles, and although Chris and I are later comers, we're so proud to be part of the Pinstripe Chronicles family, and big shout out to Bobby Tatz, Donald Stewart, and Rob Barrows, who have been there. They are the founding fathers of Pinstripe Chronicles. And so hope you enjoyed the 201st episode of Pinstripe Chronicles as we start the next 100. And as always, you know that you always have a reserve seat with us on the upper deck. And have a good week, and let's go Yankees.
Go Yankees.
Go Yankees. Thank you for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you for being with us.
Being here.